very same old WWII railroad coach where the armistice was signed on that chilly morning of November 11th, 1918. Negotiations for another armistice, the one to end the present war between France and Germany, began at 3:30 p.m. German summer time this afternoon. What a turning back of the clock, what a reversing of history we've been watching here in this beautiful Compiègne Forest this afternoon. What a contrast to that day there 22 years ago. Yes, even the weather. For we had one of those lovely warm June days, which you get in this part of France, close to Paris, about this time of year. As we stood here reaching Adolf Hitler and Field Marshal Goering and the other German leaders laying down the terms of armistice to the French plenipotentiaries here this afternoon, it was difficult to comprehend that in this rustic little clearing in the midst of the forest of Compiegne, from where we're talking to you now, an armistice was signed here on a cold gray morning at 5 a.m. on November 11th, 1918. The railroad coach, it was Marshal Foch's private car, stands a few feet away from us here, at exactly the same spot where it stood on that gray morning 22 years ago. Only, and what an only it is, too, Adolf Hitler sat in the seat occupied that day by Marshal Foch. Hitler, who at that time was only an unknown corporal in the German army. And in that quaint, old, wartime WWII car, another armistice is being drawn up as I speak to you now. An armistice designed like the other that was signed on this spot to bring armed hostilities to a halt between those ancient enemies, Germany and France. Only everything that we've been seeing here this afternoon in Compiègne Forest has been so reversed. The last time, the representatives of France sat in that car dictating the terms of the armistice. This afternoon, we peered through the windows of the car and saw Adolf Hitler laying down the terms. Thus does history reverse itself, but seldom has it done so as today on the very same spot. The German leader in the preamble of the conditions which were read to the French delegates by Colonel General von Keidel, Chief of the German Supreme Command, told the French that he had not chosen this spot at Compiegne out of revenge, but merely to right an early wrong. The armistice negotiations here on the same spot where the last armistice was signed in 1918, here in Compiègne Forest, began at 3:15 p.m. our time. A warm June sun beat down on the great elm and pine trees and cast pleasant shadows on the wooded avenues, as here Hitler, with the German plenipotentiaries at his side, appeared. He alighted from his car in front of the French monument to Alsace-Lorraine, which stands at the end of an avenue about 200 yards from the clearing here in front of us where the armistice car stands. That famous Alsace-Lorraine statue was covered with German war flags, so that you could not see its sculptured work nor read its inscription. For I've seen it many times in the post-war years, and doubtless many of you have seen it. A large sword representing the sword of the Allies, and its point sticking into a large limp eagle representing the old empire of the Kaiser. And the inscription underneath in French saying, "To the heroic soldiers of France, defenders of the country and of right, glorious liberators of Alsace-Lorraine." Through our glasses, we saw the Shirer stop, glance at the statue, observe the Reich war flags with their big swastikas in the center. Then he strode slowly toward us, toward the little clearing where the famous armistice car stood. I thought he looked very solemn, his face was grave, but there was a certain spring in his step as he walked for the first time toward the spot where Germany's fate was sealed on that November day of 1918, a fate which, by reason of his own deeds, is now being radically changed here in this